Also, a story that really became bigger over the weekend and may not be a story that affects all of us, but I thought it was a really interesting story for anyone that uses these makeup remover wipes. And you may say, I don't use makeup remover wipes, Jenna, but hold on. There's actually a story to this, okay? And it's an interesting story as well with how news is broadcast and how it's shared. So I want to take you behind the scenes a little bit. What you're seeing on your screen is a Neutrogena makeup remover pack. There's 2 packs that each have 25 makeup remover wipes in it. They're in this blue container that's very well recognized. This brand of Neutrogena is very well recognized. I've used these before. I had friends asking me about it as well. Wait, what is this all about? So there was a bacteria that was found in this particular wipe, and I'm going to try to pronounce it, and let's just hope for the best. Pluralibacter Degovia. I have no idea if that's correct. However, if you see something that sounds like that, just know it is a bacteria that apparently can be present in cosmetic items. And apparently the FDA found it present, or there was an inspection that found this present in a group of these makeup remover wipes. These wipes went to Texas, South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida. So if you're in those states and you use this product, just a heads up on this. This bacteria is not necessarily dangerous. To a healthy person, it's unlikely that you're going to get symptoms from it, but you are using these makeup removers on your eyes. So, it's something you want to protect. People that apparently are immunocompromised, have chronic conditions, they can have a reaction to this bacteria. That reaction can include things like a respiratory disease, eye infections, or even sepsis. So it's not something to mess around with. As I did some research over the weekend, I found that there is some growing concern about finding this bacteria in some cosmetic products. So sort of like news to use, news to know in case you ever see it again. What was interesting about this story is I reached out to Kenvue. So that's Kenvue. You may remember Kenvue because what else does Kenvue make? Tylenol. So we've just talked about this company. I reached out to them over the weekend because I noticed that a lot of different media organizations were using different pictures for this product because this particular makeup remover, not to get too far down this road, comes in a lot of different forms, a lot of different packet sizes. And so news organizations were throwing up all sorts of different images that as I looked at what was actually supplied by the FDA didn't match. So I reached out to the company and said, hey, we need the accurate picture here. What I showed you is what the company sent us. What we have up on our Instagram account now and what's up on our website is going to be the most accurate photo, but that's the easiest way to recognize it rather than looking for serial number on the product. And I was sort of amazed at how many different images for this one item were being shown by all sorts of different news groups. Unfortunately, Kenvue, it took about 48 hours to get back to us, 36 hours. That's a lifetime in news. And it's a great reminder that we do have to check sometimes what we see. I'm using this as an example because we get other recalls, other outbreaks, things I want to give you a heads up on. And it's a reminder that you got to really check the images to make sure it's accurately represented. So just a heads up on that, especially if you in these particular states. And we'll see if this recall gets a little bit bigger because this is a product that is widely sold and widely used. The FDA website is not active as well. You're noticing a pattern, right? National Weather Service. We're not seeing these actively updated. So I couldn't go to the FDA and say, hey, where's the image for this? Because it was just something that was filed sort of kind of tucked away, not necessarily in all their press releases, because this is a recall that happened. The recalls are also, you got to be very careful with the language. Most of the time, the recall is by the company. The company is doing it voluntarily. Whatever was flagged could either be flagged by the FDA, by inspectors, flagged by something internal. And if it is the government flagging a company to a problem, the government gives the company the opportunity to have a voluntary recall. It's very rare that you see a forced recall because the company certainly doesn't want something that could be dangerous to people on the market. And so you seldom see the government and the company on different pages. But that's why you typically see the words voluntary recall. It's because the company is given the opportunity to alert the consumer and try to make it right. As I was poking around on the FDA website, one other story I just want to flag for you because I was sort of seeing what is updated. We've talked about the screwworm over the last couple months. just periodically as we get warnings about this. Remember, this is a parasitic fly that can be really, really dangerous to livestock. So much so that there is an alert by the agriculture department here in the United States. They're tracking where they're finding these flies and how close they're getting to the border. It's very serious. So the FDA has preliminary approved some treatment for dogs. So if you're on a border state, there's a preliminary sort of experimental treatment that's approved for dogs and also one for cattle. So they're trying to move in this direction to protect animals, because the way that we've learned about this in the past, if this spreads, it can spread very quickly and damage livestock very quickly. That affects not only farmers and ranchers, but food supply in the United States. In the past, the way that we have combated this and got it out of the United States is by releasing sterile male flies. Hope I have that correct. Male flies, yes. And that way, as the flies couldn't reproduce. And that's the way we combated it. But whether or not that's going to be effective this time, or how we're going to approach it this time in a new novel way a few decades later, that's a big question. I just want to put that, it's one of those stories that keeps on coming up. And I had that feeling, sort of like the bird flu, that suddenly it becomes a really big story. And I just want to, again, put that on your radar.